Oh, hi, welcome to Investing with JYK, and today we'll talk about this company called GreatView Aseptic Packaging. It's the first time I do this live stream crap, so bear with me if I don't get a good hang of this. All right. So what is this company? I mentioned this company a while ago. Yeah, so let me just change this to live chat. Yeah, a while ago, and then essentially it is a aseptic packaging company like Tetra Pak, and these are the boxes. These boxes that you see. I think this is from Tetra Pak, obviously. This is from Vitalife or something. And this one, which is some kind of Australian milk thing. It's imported Australian milk basically, and then that's from GreatView. I mean, this is their logo. If you do live in China, you can actually, go and have a look and see. Whenever you buy these boxed drinks, if you can just turn over and you can see who makes it. I bet they're in China at most three brands you will see. There's Tetra Pak, is GreatView. There was another Chinese company that I don't remember very well. I'm getting a deja vu of me having talked about this company. Why is that? Anyways, whatever. So let's just take a look at their. I have such a strong deja vu. Let me just check on whether I actually have talked about this company. Dun 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 dun. Views. All right. So all I see, I have a Luckin Coffee. Then I talk about Shanghai Petrochemical. Maybe I have recorded. I just haven't uploaded. That was very stupid of me. But such is life. Okay, so this company. Let's just look at the whole valuation thing first, and then we'll get into the details of this company. So they went public in early 2010, about the beginning of the decade, and you can see in terms of PE, they're at the lowest ever of their existence. In terms of PB, they're at the lowest ever of their existence, and in terms of PS, they're about at the lowest ever in their existence. And in terms of dividend, it is at the highest ever in their existence. So, yes, for GSH, we'll talk about that later. I haven't watched that company too carefully recently. Nothing really changed except like nobody travels and everything gets shut down. So their earnings probably really crap. Okay, so valuation. That's one part of valuation, which is in terms of like static valuation. What about growth? Their growth isn't too good. If you look at their revenue, it was increasing pretty madly, and then now they're like flat. And this quarter they're actually slightly down. They've had a few down quarters, and every time they had the lowest of their earnings, their revenues always like in a slight or major decline of 2%. Um, and in terms of their earnings, they've been growing pretty fast in the early part of the decade, last decade, and now same thing. They dipped into a bit of decline, and this one is hard to see because this is free. This is cash flow from operating activities, and this thing just bounces over all over the place. But it's positive all this time, so that's at least that's good. And in terms of well, shareholder equity, I mean, it's increasing, so very little to see there. And is the quality of their earning any good? So you can see that the cash flow from operating activities is about the same. It kind of tracks about 100% of their profit. And the only thing outside operating cash flow um, in in a cash flow statement is really just capital expenditure and interests. So let me think about interest. Interest, I think, is not part of operating cash flow. Interest is part of uh, no, interest is part of operating cash flow. They don't actually have any debt, so if you just look at their balance sheet, that's not very useful. But we can still see that total debt, they had something like tiny amounts. So 2009, this is what, 7.8. These are in 100 million yuan. So 7.8 total debt, and these include everything, including the interest bearing ones and then the non interest bearing ones. So the total asset is something like 34. So that gives you the perspective. And in terms of interest bearing debt, where do we see the interest bearing they had? Should be. This one doesn't actually. That's not well. This website is very good for Chinese companies listed in China, but it gets progressively worse as we go to Hong Kong and especially US. So no, don't get to see the interest bearing debt part, but from what I remember, they had about zero. Okay, so they compete essentially just against Tetra Pak. They won a lawsuit against Tetra Pak. So Tetra Pak sued them for infringing on Tetra Pak's patents in not in the actual packaging, but because I think the packaging is already past the valid period of the patent. And so they kind of came up with other patents in trying to construct a wall around their product and basically sue everybody who uses this form factor. So their claim was that the way they locate the beginning and the end and where they should print each, they should spur these ink into the packaging. The way they do the location is through some color boxes, and they will claim that color box pattern is a proprietary thing which is patented. Now, what GreatView then claimed on the other hand was that, well, this patent is basically it's not bona fide. And then in Europe they said, all right, we all had these location patterns from long time ago, and whatever Tetra Pak did in their own variation was not patentable, so that got struck down, and Now GreatView can sell stuff in Europe, which they kind of did. Okay, so in terms of stock price performance, they are at the lowest. Well, if you get rid of this, which is adding back the amount of dividend that's distributed, so take that away. So we're at the lowest since like 2000, and well, they've never been public before. So 2011 was the supposedly double dip, so that was the last recession fear, and they're a tier, and then you would think, oh, that these guys are going bankrupt or something. No, they're not going bankrupt. They're making plenty of cash, and they have no debt, no interest-bearing debt, and maybe they won't grow for a while, but it's a fairly shareholder-friendly company, and they pay you about 9% in dividend, so I would not complain too much. Okay, so let's look at one of their last reports. Thank you very much for error loading the PDF. This is 2018. Their 2019 one should be coming out fairly soon, but this is the best we have up for now. So let's see what there's a very interesting part of this company that their capacity. Damn it, capacity. Right, so they keep on expanding their production capacity, but from what I observed, since they became public, they basically had they had a 2019 one. Hold on. 2019. Oh, that's the interim. Yeah. Yes. So let's just look at the annual one. So in 2000, so their capacity keeps growing. They went from something like I don't have the numbers right off my head, but something like 100 million to like 400 million or something. They keep on expanding it. Oh, here we go. Oh, sorry. Whoop. Excuse me. I got all the numbers mixed up. Yeah, I looked at this in Mexico, basically. That was like in beginning of this year. Right, so their utilization was 52%. This is crap. How the fuck does a manufacturer live with a production utilization, a capacity utilization rate of close to 50%? But then I checked back in 2010. They had similar things. So these guys basically are stuck. All right, here we go. They had 9.6 billion packs in 2010, and then in terms of capacity, and then the utilization. I think they don't. Well, here they made 5.67 billion out of 9.4. They were at 60%. So yeah, it seems like this company has just always had almost double the capacity as they really utilize in a year. So in my mind, there are two ways that you can explain this. One is that they're stupid and they just overbuilt, and the other way is it could be that the consumption of boxed drinks are seasonal. So during certain seasons, you just don't get to utilize all your production. That could be a case. It is a bit similar to air conditioners, and unless, I mean, in China at least, the cheapest is to sell within China, as then you don't have to go through all the other checks, and you don't have to build out your overseas sales network. In China, Gree was able to essentially stuff the channel during the low seasons, and then the channel kind of just burns down in the high season, so they can maintain production over the year. But these, I guess, for food or drinks in this case, these are perishable, so you can't really just stuff the channel. the channel kind of rots. Right, so they had a steady growth. You can check it out yourself, but I do remember doing a. I do remember having some kind of Excel spreadsheet that did the kind of just graph this out. I don't remember how I put it, but they had like a fairly steady growth of capacity, and there was 1 year that they didn't have much growth, but the second year they kind of grew a bit more. So overall, the growth rate is fairly steady, and then they make more and more. And then they kind of just produce more and more of them. And then the other thing that you need to realize is their gross margin was declining, I think. Yeah, we go. This is ROE, ROA. That too. Net margin is declining too. And the gross margin, maybe you have to go here. Let's see here. Gross margin. Let me just go to yearly and maybe 10 years. Gross margin was 31 in 2010, and then that declined to 24 point something, close to 25. So you can see that the competition is definitely there, is very strong. It used to be, well, they kind of always sell at a discount to Tetra Pak, and I think Tetra Pak was feeling the burn, and then they kind of lowered their price. So GreatView lowered their price as well, and this company, in terms of how much, if you do like a analysis in the entire chain, if you look at their clients actually have a fairly high say in how they run, right? So who they sell to? They sell to, well, that one that you just saw, which is some Australian milk, and actually in here, Ely, which is the largest dairy company in China, and I think Mengniu, which is also public. That's the second largest, I would say. Both of them use Tetra Pak and GreatView, so they're kind of pitting them against each other, in a sense. And yes, their raw material is easy to source. You can just get paper and essentially just need paper and aluminium. But then it's a bit like the can companies in US, when you have the beer companies essentially contracting to two canning companies and then have them pit against each other. And so this is happening here as well. So it is important to buy these companies at a low valuation. Never buy them very expensive. Don't extrapolate high margins forever, because the barrier to entry is not insignificant, but not that high. And then you definitely don't have any of the long-term competitive advantages like network effects or replacement. So yeah, and it's also for these large dairy companies and juice companies, it's imaginable that they would just try out a new supplier in very limited quantities and then see how that works out. So yeah. So this company, in terms of their unique capacities, other than, like, basically, how does this compare to Tetra Pak? Obviously they're cheaper, as I just mentioned, but the other thing is they were doing this smart packaging. Yes, I got electrocuted. That's my no. I did not get electrocuted. My hair gets weird from time to time. It kind of just happens. So this is, well, Unfortunately, this is not in English, but this is actually quite cool. They can have a unique QR code on every single package, so that in that way you can trace back, like, each box of drink that you sell becomes unique, and you can trace back everything from where you basically, that's like a key you put into your supply chain management software or database, and that tells you, oh, where is that thing being, or where was that packaged, where did it go for storage, and maybe even which cow gave it its milk. I mean, I would imagine these cow milk would be mixed together, but in the extreme case, you can imagine, I have my cow from Larry the cow. Sorry, Larry's male. I mean, Lori the cow or something. And nobody is able to do this. It's their thing. They are the only one. And then they did this in 2017 and 18, so it was fairly recent. That was their gig. They also made some fancy packaging, which is which like it's like metallic looking. This guy. Yeah, so this thing, they're like, oh, it has metallic looking, it's fancy, and then people love it, and blah blah blah. I mean, yeah, I can imagine that being more attractive, but am I willing to pay 15 cents more for a package that looks nicer? Well, I guess I'm not, but my wife certainly is. My wife loved these fancy random things that are completely useless. And then there was another thing. Oh yeah, the other. In what sense are they worse than Tetra Pak? They're much slower. Their machines are much slower. They do about 7,000 per minute or hour. I don't remember the exact number. They sell their packaging. They sell their machine that basically just puts the liquid inside these boxes, and here these rows of their packaging material, and then that gets fed into this machine, and then you have this liquid coming in, and you kind of just seal it up, and out pops all your boxed milk. And they can do about 6,000 boxes per hour. And if you look at Tetra Pak, they do like 40K. Tetra Pak. And if I were able to buy Tetra Pak, I would, but they're private, which is very, very sad. Wait, hold on. They were, let's see, they had some speed. Tetra Pak A1 speed, not just the fast. Where's their speed? Come on, when you tell me speed, at least tell me at what speed. What the fuck? These filling machines. Alright, let's look at this. Alright, this one is 15,000 package per hour, which is still more than double what GreatView can do. So Tetra Pak definitely has their own thing that they're clearly better, but again, you can't buy them. So okay, so other than that, I was thinking of their corporate structure. So what did their founders think of them? Because this company is not very old. They started in 2008 or 9, and then they went public in 10, and then they kind of just expanded from there. So a lot of their shares were still held at their founders' hands. So if you look, there was something here. You can look at the interests and short positions of directors. Okay, So you got Hong Kong and this Bihua guy, and then total they hold about 15% of the company. Very good. And then if you look at the further, when you go to their directors, there are more holdings. You've got Jardine Matheson. They hold 28% of this company. And then there was this Fu guy, which became a director in 2019, July, I think July 2019, was a that was 4.5 million shares, which is about 0.4% of the company. But he already held these shares and he became a director. So Jardine Matheson was a very interesting thing that happened. So they acquired 22% of the company in 2017, and they are a very, very old company. 187 years ago. That's like 3 lifetimes for some people, 2 for most. Well, more than 2 for most. So they used to sell opium to China. How times has changed. They now invest in China, and people don't really associate them with opium anymore. Yeah, they made some. I mean, I checked on their holdings. They in China they have 2 major holdings. One is called Yonghui Supermarket, which has performed really well in the recent downturn, and then the second one is this GreatView Packaging Company. Yes, and then the other thing I was thinking is they actually didn't go down too bad, like too bad, since late January. It kind of still makes sense. I mean, if you stay at home, you're gonna drink probably as many boxed drinks as you are outside. I mean, people don't walk and drink from a boxed like drink. Usually, that's usually bottles. So yeah, boxed drinks they're usually for home consumption anyways. So yeah, now Chinese are all stuck in their homes. I just think they will just get some drinks delivered and these boxed drinks. Maybe it might go down just a bit because people don't move as much, so they kind of work out less and consume less liquids. But I don't see how this will impact them too harshly. So yeah, so that's my very disorganized thoughts on this company. And last thing, there was no insider transaction since 2017. Nothing happened. Nobody sold, nobody bought. If that's any interest. But that's it. Bye. How do I stop this?